Good morning. I hear that great music. I just want to say more. That's great. I'm very grateful to be here chatting with you today. I saw some pictures of the wedding. I don't believe that there could be bigger smiles on Patty and Fred's face as I saw these pictures. So congratulations to them. The theme for this month is life in nature. So I don't know if you noticed the name of my talk today was, "Where is your grounding rod?" And so we're going to talk about that. And so I was born in Texas and spent a few years there before I moved to Las Vegas. But while I was in Texas, I still remember how excited and scared I was of the lightning and thunderstorms that were in Texas. I really wanted to see them, but I really hoped they weren't really loud and that it wasn't too scary. But I did enjoy it. And so I still, even today, have that enjoyment of hearing the thunderstorms and lightning, though we don't get that much here in Orange County. But I was in the Air Force. I joined the Air Force and spent like 6 years there, but you always start out with this thing called basic training. And it was in San Antonio, Texas. And so on one occasion, they let you go to church on Sunday. So you have to run around and do all that exercise and everything, but they let you go to church on Sunday. And as a platoon, everybody has to go and everybody goes together. And so on this occasion, we went, did this thing we're supposed to do, and it filled up the church. So we're talking, 2,000, 3,000 troops are in this church. And so you all have to be in order in your patrol, which is probably around 30 people. And so church was over, and so we're done with church, so we're going outside, and then the platoon leader, he raises his hands up so everybody can see their platoon person and go get in line all around them. So there was a platoon leader that did that, and they had their hand up, and he was wearing a silver ring. And it was a stormy day, and he put his hand up, and so there was a lightning bolt that came headed for a transformer that was probably 300 or 400 yards away from where we were, but as it was traveling, it got attracted to his silver ring and struck him and knocked him down to the ground. I don't know how he, what happened after that, because it wasn't in my squad, but just the power, so it a little bit broke off and got him, but it totally blew up the transformer. I mean, it was pretty dramatic. And so it just kind of reinforced my whole thing about lightning, mainly reinforced the scared part, not the excited part. And so I had that, early on, and so then this talk came up about nature, and I first thought of the lightning, electricity. Do you know how many volts can be in a bolt of lightning? How many volts? Over 1 billion. Possibility of over 1 billion. So that's, for those of you that don't know electricity, that's a lot. and so we have our buildings, and even this building here, we have lights, we have various things going on, and we have electricity here. And so there's electricity flowing through the lines, and there's getting an electricity lesson here today. There's AC and DC, and then the lightning is considered static. So a little bit more than rubbing your feet or touching the doorknob. But it's considered static electricity. And so we kind of designed our buildings to take advantage of the fact that we put a lot of money into this building electricity, and so we want to protect it. So there is a grounding rod that is somewhere in this building. I don't know where it is, but it's grounded to earth, because electricity always returns to its source, always. So if it's AC current, it's going to return to its source, which is the breaker box. If it's DC, it's going to return to its source, the battery. And if it's static electricity like lightning, where do you think it's going to return to? Earth. Earth. That completes the circuit. So it always will go back to source. And what happens is, if you don't plan for it, it's going to find a way. So if you don't have that grounding rod, it will find its way through your lights, your wiring, your equipment. And you can imagine what 1 billion volts would do to your lights and your wiring and all. So it needs to have a path. And so that grounding then becomes very, very significant. And as I've been seeing this and reading about the grounding and all of that, it was like, okay, there has to be a path. And so you can see, maybe you can see why I brought that up as my talk, is because, what do you use for grounding yourself? So I'm going to do a lot of parallels between electricity and yourself. And some of you know that I'm a big fan of movies, right? So I like to talk about movies, and the reason I like to talk about movies is because that's the imagination. And I think that's the most creative thing we have, is our imagination. And so that if we can envision it in our minds, then it can happen. And so movies, through whatever tricks and trades that they do to present those movies, is actually the execution of imagination. So the movie that I have for you today is one that was in 1995 called Powder. Does anybody remember that movie? A few people, yeah. I really like that movie a lot. The basic premise of the movie is there's a kid who is an albino, all white, no hair on the body, and so his mother was killed in childbirth, and his grandparents took over raising him, but they couldn't handle the fact that he was an albino, and he had this quirky thing about electricity, that it kind of, anytime they tried to watch TV, it would be all staticky, and because he carried this current with him. And so he stayed in the basement his whole life. So his basement was there, books lining the walls, but in all the time that he didn't leave that basement. And so then the grandparents passed away, and he was still down there in the basement. And so they found out that, hey, they had a kid. Where's the kid? And the kid's in the basement. So then the local school counselor comes to get him out of the basement. He's like, no, I'm good here. And so, because there's no grandparents, that he has to go under somebody's care. And so the whole movie is about exploring him as an individual and his experience outside of the basement. And there's a interaction that he has with this counselor that I want to share with you. So the two of them are talking, and she asked him, what are people like on the inside? And he said, inside, most people, there's a feeling of being separate from everything. And then she says, and then he responds, and they're not. They're part of absolutely everyone and everything. And then her response is, it's hard to believe all of that. And his response, it's because you have this spot that you can't see past. My Grams and Gramps had it, the spot where they were taught that they were disconnected from everything. And then, I won't do the movie spoiler alert, but basically, he demonstrated that we are all energy, and that we're all one, and that we're all in this thing together. And so the people that came in contact with him, it was interesting that they wanted to learn the lesson, but they were too trapped in the fact that wasn't the way that they were taught. And so some of them released it, their hold, that spot, and some of them didn't. But that's the idea, right? To find your spot and realize that it's not a spot. It's just, you've created it and you can get rid of it. So that movie was very special for me. And I believe whenever we talk about the grounding rod here, it's pretty obvious, and I've already said it, that the grounding rod is God. The grounding rod is God. And I believe that you'll always be protected with that. And I think that for the biggies, the biggies that we have in life, I think we turn to God pretty quickly, right? So for those events that we're very grateful for, births and weddings and things, we get excited and we're happy and we think of God in those times. And then the sad times, whenever somebody's making their transition, you think of God. So I call those big events. So most of us, even if we aren't attending church or aren't doing spiritual practices, we do turn to God at those times. But what I wanted to walk you through something that was kind of a neat tie-in that I saw. So the buildings, lightning's bad, right? So lightning striking your building is really bad. But there are other things going on in the building. And if you haven't connected the dots yet, you're the building. Just connect the analogy together. All right, so what else do you get out of this looking into electricity and managing it and having the proper grounds and all? One is you have electrical overload protection. You have electrical overload protection. And you know what I did with that? I said, well, wait, that has a relation to me as a person. So what about the reaction to people and events that happen? Isn't that a protection? Isn't God a protection from being overloaded, from people that upset you or events that upset you? So I did that connection there. The next one is voltage stabilization. Voltage stabilization. So I would ask you to tell me what that ties to, but it's on my notes, so I can't. But anyway, for me, voltage stabilization is spiritual practices. Spiritual practices. So you can keep things at an even keel as you go through life with your spiritual practices. The third one is electricity direction. So your system directs electricity where it goes. Remember, it always returns to its source. So the electricity that goes out to light these lights, it'll take some off to light the lights, but it's always going to go back to where it began. So I saw electricity direction as attitude. Attitude. What direction are you looking at? What direction are you perceiving the things that are happening around you? And the last one is damage and injury prevention. Damage and injury prevention. So the correlation I made to this one was intuition. So that you have intuition that, of course we have the obvious ones, don't touch that hot stove, or don't stand in front of the car. But there's other intuitions that you can have that can guide you. And it happens to me a lot. And I just I would not pay attention. And then the hammer became a board, and then became a 2x4, and it kept hitting me over the head until I would pay attention. And so it's very good to be tied to that intuition and to listen to that guidance. And so for me, I always like to talk about Ernest Holmes, right, the founder of our teaching. And today it's special that I'm up here talking with you because today is the 64th anniversary of his transition. So I thought that was pretty neat to be able to honor him and use one of his quotes today. So this is what I have from Ernest today. Everything that we see in nature is a symbol or icon, a window to God. Thus, as we meditate on the earth, the forest, and the heavens, we open our souls to the portals of God. Everything in nature includes the forest, the plants, and the animals, is a holy and sacred instrument of God. The search after God is not the search for some abstract principle or some future state of being. Our search is to find that something right where we are, to discover that something in each other and in nature. And so I wanted to share a few things with you about me personally. One of the connections I have to nature and this grounding rod for me is the ocean. And in a book that I read in my high school days, which I'm not telling you how long ago that was, but it was a long time ago. But anyway, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And so I had many times as I was growing up, I had many trials and tribulations of different things in my life. But what I would always go back to is the music. I don't know if you guys know about the music of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, the movie, but that was Neil Diamond, and I'm a big Neil Diamond fan, so that's a confession, I like Neil Diamond. But anyway, so two of the songs on the album, one is called Be, and it's all about being and being present, and the other one is Dear Father, which is a song that is a prayer to God. And I have and still can remember times where I would put one of those songs on and put it on repeat, and I would listen to it for hours. Because it's where was I, and I was seeking that connection. It's before I had this teaching, but it was something that put me, I would say initially not at ease, but it helped me accept what was there. And once I accepted what was happening in front of me, then I was able to embrace it and see what was there for me to learn and to move on. So that is still today a big thing for me, the ocean and Jonathan. It's funny, and my family all knows about that. So for you, they don't do it anymore, but used to for years. Oh, well, here's a seagull. They take a picture, So I have hundreds of pictures of seagulls. Look, seagull. They don't do that anymore, which is cool. It's cool, but it was funny at the time. They just recognized my resonance with Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Another one that I have is meditation and prayer. And I do different forms. I have those where just want to be present, but I also do the walking meditations. Walking down at the beach and feeling that sand in my feet and the water and hearing the waves. And that connects me. It connects me with God, and it kind of separates me from whatever I'm thinking is a big deal in my life. Look out at the ocean, and there you can see a big deal, right? And so it puts things in perspective. Another thing which I kind of talked about with Jonathan is music. So depending on what I'm doing, I have different music. I have a soundtrack on or not a soundtrack, but a song list in my Apple thing, and it's Power Up. So all the songs that I've heard that just give me a charge and make me feel good, I put them in there. And then I have some other ones that are like pianos. I love the piano. Thanks, Hal. Love the piano and just hearing it. And so I have those soundtracks too. And so what that does is it helps me connect. And also it helps me disconnect. Disconnect for whatever is a problem that I'm having and connect to God. So as a grounding rod, I'm disconnecting from interference or whatever, and I'm looking to go back to my source. I'm looking to go to the grounding rod to go back to my source, to get back to God. And the other things that I have is a connection with family. I have 4 kids and 4 grandkids, and I love family time. You get me to start talking about Taya, and I have smiles from ear to ear. All of my grandchildren, it recharges me, and it puts me in a place of calm, and it puts me in a place that it's a miracle. Right? Every moment is a miracle for us, and we can look at our kids and our grandkids, and we can experience that, and then we keep that looking out, and it's everybody. Every one of you is a miracle. And so sometimes we need to get reminded. So these practices that I do, and the last one I had is for study. You know, it's interesting that I went through the ministerial school program and it was 37 classes. 37 classes over 5 years. And what I realized as I finished each class, there was this much more that I didn't know. And then every class, there's so much more that I don't know. There's so much more so never once, and I don't think I'll ever be at the point where I say, I got it. You know, I got it. I got all I need to know. No, it's never ending. It's never ending. But being on that path, like the current going to the grounding rod to ground back to the earth, you can have a grounding rod to God that you go back. And notice one of the things that I've been talking about, it's kind of subtle, but I don't know if you picked up on it, but all of the work in that electricity and that grounding rod, that is all done before there's lightning, before there's electricity going into the building. So we have to do that preparation work now to connect to God, so that when that lightning bolt comes, we're ready. And when it just might be a little static charge, it's a little bit stronger than we anticipate. You know, if lightning strikes, I forget what the odds are being hit by a bolt of lightning, you might go, doesn't pertain to me, lightning strike, I never have to worry about that. But it's everything in between. It's everything in between. That's what you need to be prepared for. And for me, I've picked things. I picked the ocean and Jonathan and the music, and all of those things help me. Do I stay on that path all the time? No. But I know that I have a grounding rod that can get me back to God, and that can get me to a place where I have peace and love. I am so excited to be with all of you guys right now, and I hope that you find your grounding rod, and I know you probably already have, but give it some attention, and know with a surety that you are never alone, and you are always loved. And so it is.